Hi everybody, Bud Jeffries, StrongerMan.com, SuperhumanTraining.com, Tough Guy News, Facebook, Twitter, brand new website, 30 Days of Life, and lots of other stuff coming up. I'm doing a little special guest video and guest blog post for my boy Mike Bruce. Mike's one of my good friends, one of my best friends. I was privileged to kind of be able to give him a little foothold in the strongman world, kind of introduce him to some things, and just happened to find an association through him through strongman, and be able to kind of kick him into some other people. And Mike's done amazing stuff, really pulled himself up from his bootstraps, always done it his whole life. Got a whole thing on the Maximize Man you should all be watching. Got a million new products coming out, and he and I have a ton of things in common, but one of the real training techniques that we have in common is partial lifts. And there's a ton of debate about this on the internet, and which is the prime source of debate, but in books and other things and other discussions in the fitness world, where people talk about you should or shouldn't do partial reps, and let me tell you why I think you should. Okay, I believe that partial reps is one of the key ways to build a superhuman level of strength. I think Mike's displayed it. I think I've displayed it. I think many of the old-time strongmen, Paul Anderson, Bob Peoples, to some extent the Saxon brothers, and many of the other great strongmen, Louis Cyr from that time, guys today, like the Gillingham brothers, and many of your normal powerlifters as today. The entire West Side culture today thrives off of different types of partials, and many others throughout the history of the world. The Russians even call it, what I'm about to show you here, the health lift. And even in the modern show style strongman, guys like Mike Bruce and myself and Dennis Rogers have done a tremendous amount of training with these, and let me tell you some of the reasons why. Now I'm just going to, and here's another thing I'm going to do in this video just to show you, okay? I'm going to actually do a quick 5-minute long workout with these partials. Partial deadlifts, one of my favorite exercises, one of Mike's favorite exercises. In fact, I think Mike is about the best in the world at it. I'm nowhere close to him on that. I'm just going to do a light one here to show you how quickly you can easily knock out partials, and in the whole time I'm going to talk to you about what we're doing and what the deal is and why you should be doing it. Okay, so I'm going to load and talk talk to you back and forth at the same time. Now this is a short range partial deadlift. Now I classify partials by multiple ranges, okay? And the old time strongman would have called a very short partial deadlift, a really short 1-2 inches, they would actually call it a hand and thigh lift. And that can be done with a different apparatus, a chain bar, or you can do it with a barbell or many other setups. And this would be something you would consider a rack pull, or this, what I'm showing you, is actually a mid-range partial. Now you can tell I'm right at my kneecaps, okay, basically touching my kneecaps, just a hair over them. And then there's a long partial, which would be below my kneecaps, etc. So just to give you some classifications of why. And partial is kind of a misnomer, okay, because that implies that the other lift is somehow more legitimate. And partials can be a tremendous benefit to your own training for full range lifts, what we consider full range lifts, or they can be an end unto themselves. In fact, if you never did a full range deadlift off the floor, but you did partial deadlift, you would still be strong, still have muscle, still have a tremendous amount. Now, full range is actually a misnomer a little bit, okay? We consider a full range deadlift, and I'm going to talk to you about the deadlift, but I believe really heavily in partials for all kinds of stuff, for overhead pressing, for bench pressing, for rows. Dennis Rogers, I know, like to do one-arm partial curls, just as a build-up to his other one-arm curling feats. Mike's huge on the partial deadlift. I'm huge on the partial squat also, and a ton of other type of movements. In fact, I've done a whole DVD on this that shows you just a ton of different ways to do it and why, and there's a lot to it. But full range is kind of a misnomer, and let me tell you why. Who got to decide that the entire range of a deadlift that would be quote-unquote full is where the plates sit on the floor? Okay, a truly full range exercise is the furthest range you can move through the entire articulation of a particular movement, okay? And the barbell sitting on the floor is not it. It would actually need to be the barbell sitting on the bar that you actually grab on your feet So you would have to be standing on a block, which would be a deficit deadlift, or below, okay, which would be the entire stretch of the range. Now, almost nobody, and it's probably not the smartest thing in the world, to do deep level, high-end stretch stuff with a heavy weight, okay? So you probably don't want to be trying to lift 500, 800 pounds with your hands below your feet stretched to the absolute max. Now, you can be close to that and do deficit deadlifts from really long range, or really, for the most part, it's not. There's no point in going below your feet. But that is the only way you can truly classify full range. Now, we just classify it in powerlifting terms, which would be a full completion of the competition-style lift, which is from the floor, plate sitting on the floor, to the ground. But really, if you think about it, it's an arbitrary height, okay? And that arbitrary height means nothing, really. Other than that's just where the bar happens to sit, okay? But it's a totally complete lift to do at any range that your body happens to fit comfortably in, or happens to like for particular purposes. And here is two of the reasons, or the real big reasons, that I believe partials are some of the smartest things you can do, okay? Knock out a quick lift here. Okay. Number one, they allow you to work things at the absolute maximum intensity in a very safe manner. Okay. Now, if you watch people deadlift, you'll understand that if you're pulling off the floor, even if you're built to deadlift, it's a reasonably long range and opens the door for technical flaws. But you see, I'm only lifting 6 inches or so, a little more than that maybe. And in doing that, what am I doing? I have a very short range with which to make any technical errors, okay? In doing so, you expose your core and the other parts of your body to the absolute maximum stress that you can possibly do it. That is why Mike and myself have what Mike has titled in his ab DVDs, the armored core, okay? And now that's part of the reason. Now, is it actually core exercise or stomach exercises? Absolutely, okay? But more than that, there is basically no way to build a stronger set of abdominals that function completely unified than partial squats or deadlifts that expose your torso to a massive amount of load. Now, I'm only going to go to 700 and something pounds today. Okay, I'm not even going to go hard, not going to put a belt on. But I could go on up to 1,000 or better, or you might be like Mike and be able to go up to 1,500 pounds or more from a slightly different angle or setup or whatever. Okay, there's no way to expose your abdominals, your back, your hips, your hamstrings, everything together to that kind of load in any other way. So it's a safe way. You expose it to a massive amount of load. Now, your bones, ligaments, and tendons, they grow, they get stronger, and as you grow, you get safer in doing this. Some people will say, oh, it's so much weight, it's dangerous. Yeah, you know, weight is a totally arbitrary thing, and danger is a totally arbitrary thing in that particular thing. You're exposed to at least that much compressive load if you were to jump up and down, or jump up and down off a box. It's really a totally arbitrary thing. Now, do you need to be smart and safe? Absolutely. Okay. Now, here's one of the big reasons I think people miss, okay? This is really why West Side and a lot of those guys use partials, and the smartest thing, okay? I'm going to go to 700 pounds without a belt. Now, I couldn't pull that all the way off the floor without a belt, okay? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of a movement that's very practical, and I'm going to expose my body to the most I can in that movement, okay? And I'm going to maximize my strength in a very practical area. Okay, if you look at the most things people do at fighting, at boxing, at grappling, they don't drop down until their hands are on the floor. What do? Or any kind of sport, really. You are in a partial position, a half position for squat, deadlift, whatever. This is where most of the real world effort takes place. And you can pull off the floor all you want, or squat full range all you want, but you'll never have the total level of strength in that practical range without a heavy partial movement. Okay. For instance, in doing these the first time, you might pull, say, 100 pounds more than your full range deadlift. Okay. Now your body actually has potential that's not even tapping. Okay. And by your nerves getting efficient, you get stronger. Maybe you pull 150 pounds, and then your body actually gets stronger, and you might pull significantly more than that. In doing that, okay, what have you done? You've maximized your body's potential for that space of movement, and there's no other way to do that. So there's no other way to totally gain your total functional maximum practical strength in those ranges without working as heavy as you can in that possible range, and the only way to do that is a partial deadlift. Now, band training, chain training, reverse band training is actually the same thing. It's just using a full range movement and adding an extra to the barbell to accommodate the resistance. So what you're doing by doing that is, if you have 500 pounds on the floor, 700 pounds at the top, is you're making the top end of your movement, your strong range, tougher. Okay, adding more resistance to it. Same if you add chains, same if you add a reverse band where the bar is actually supported in the bands, and as you pull, the bar gets heavier. Well, that's a heavier lift, so you would actually start with 700 pounds, something you couldn't lift, and add weight there. So it's the same types of resistance, just done with a different type of apparatus. And these are, in my opinion, some of the best and simplest ways, and something you can truly max out. You can gain all kinds of muscle, all kinds of strength. You can very tightly control how much mass you add by doing that. Okay, and it's probably the only way to truly get strength in that particular range of motion at the maximum you can possibly have. Okay, because you won't max it out from a full range strength. Now, you'll get very good if you get good at full range strength, but you won't have your max. And this will actually carry over to your full range strength, which is a massive added benefit. In fact, I got the strongest I ever got by doing partial range movements and by adding distance to the partial range movements as I went. And I believe that is probably the ultimate technique for truly maxing out your possible muscular physical potential. Now, as you can see, no big deal. I'm not sweating, or barely, even though it's kind of cold out, and I'm not breathing hard, even though I just lifted 715 pounds. Could I lift quite a bit more? Yeah. Does it matter? Yes and no. Not every workout needs to be as crazy as you can make it, but you should get as strong as you possibly can. You see, this only took me 4 sets and 5-7 minutes, whatever, and it would take me a lot less time if I weren't explaining things to you as we go. Partials are super important in your training. They'll protect you from injury, build muscle. They're ultimately usable when you begin to training for super muscle, okay, which is what I call training for type 3 muscle that has maximum power and maximum endurance at the same time, and I'll have to tell you about that on another DVD. God bless you all. Thank you so much. You take care.